Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is another Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies. I want to show you some movie stuff first. First, I want to talk about the downfall of the Marvel movies and the agenda. And I've talked about this before, but it's just a lot here. So I saw this trailer the other day, and it stars, is it Dakota Johnson from the, what is those grays in that? Gray, something gray, shades of gray movies. And then I think she's Don Johnson's daughter. I'm not sure about that. But she plays a superhero, kind of. Somebody who gets the gift of premonition. And she's connected to these high school girls. And so... And that's the bad guy. These are the high school girls. And she, I don't know.
Until one moment changed everything.
One moment changed everything for Dakota. I'm just going to go through some different things here. And then,
New York City is a whole new level of crazy these days.
She just saw the future.
It's an emergency. Get off the train.
That man's trying to kill you.
What?
Who are you? What is going on? I can see the future.
No way.
Oh, what the hell?
That was funny. She threw a rock at her. She couldn't see the future. But then these girls she's trying to save, but she's a paramedic.
I don't think this is weird, how we're all connected.
It's honestly like the least weird thing that's happened all day.
And so there's some jokes in here and all these things, right? But it's this idea of them throwing more female superheroes with a feminist agenda, with a liberal feminist woke agenda that is making movies that weren't spectacular to start with a lot worse.
What do you want from me?
That's a Billie Eilish song. They play it here. There's some more stuff here. She went into her eye, Illuminati eye there. Boom. Boom. There's all kinds of webs and stuff in her eye. Maybe we should get that looked at.
Get ready. Now.
Boom. What's going to happen? Then she says something here.
You're showing off. Maybe a little.
Maybe a little. Maybe a little she's showing off. And so let's go to the other thing here about that. Marvel star Iman Vellani isn't concerned with the focus on the box office. That's for Bob Iger, the president of Disney. Now, Disney's hemorrhaging money. See, they bought all these expensive things, and they bought Marvel when it was about to peak. And now they have, whatever, Marvel rides and things like this. But, Marvel is destroying itself and its brand, and retroactively. Like I've talked about retroactive sucking. And Disney's having to lay people off at ESPN and people who are doing a good job. And, like they're selling the furniture there. They got tagged during COVID, and Disney's taking a hit on their own stuff. And they've just put out a lot of bad content, right? I'm watching a little bit of the Loki TV show, which is one of the better ones that they have. And, the villain that they're creating is very annoying. He's just not a likable. He's no Thanos. Right? They have this villain, and he was in the Quantum Mania Ant-Man movie that was horrible. They're making one bad movie after another. I think Thor may be the worst one. I mean, Thor was so bad. And, the problem is they have different directors. And now they're bringing a lot of women directors and feminists who are dealing with the same characters that are in different movies. So the Avengers movies have different directors, and all the individual movies have different directors. And the guy who's directed the last two Thors, he does comedy stuff. He did a good job on that, TV show I just watched, which featured Native Americans, right? But it was, something different than what he's doing here in Thor. That Thor was horrible, and they've done 4 movies, and the movies the character is different in all 4 movies, right? And so says here, I'm happy with the finished product and people that I care about enjoyed the film. Yeah, well, that's not how the business works, right? You, so this is what Stephen King wrote about it. I don't go to MCU movies, don't care for them, but I find this barely masked gloating over the low box office for the Marvels very unpleasant. Why gloat over failure? Stephen King is a horrible liberal, and he's created his own bad movies and his own bad books and things like that, right? But here, some of the rejection of the Marvels may be adolescent fanboy hate. Yuck, girls. And so they're using Stephen King's tweet as a way to justify this. But, Stephen King had an audience, right? And I don't know if he ever wrote books that his audience got pissed at him about because he decided to push an agenda on them that they didn't want. Okay, so it's the next day. Today's Friday, November 24th. I'm going to put the video up today, most likely if it is passed through, and it should be. And I just added something that'll be at the end of this video with Bill Gates and, this stuff with the AI. And I also saw this. I guess I saw this on Facebook maybe this morning. And it says, Fantastic Four MCU reboot rumored to have female Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer and Marvel's Fantastic Four MCU reboot, reportedly a woman. What would be Juno? I'm not sure who Juno is. As Norrin Radd. Norrin Radd is a male character. And so, rumor Marvel Studios to gender swap Silver Surfer in upcoming Fantastic Four reboot. Now, they've learned nothing, right? And so, the Silver Surfer is one of the best characters, if not the best, hero characters created in any of these universes, DC or Marvel. And it's a more sophisticated character that's philosophical and cosmic, right? So the Silver Surfer is also a romantic character, and the imagery and it's just of a higher consciousness, the storylines and these other things. There is this creature named Galactus. There are these titans that are really they're huge beings, right? In the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, there's basically a planet where they are mining the skull of one of these titans, right? The titan is this extraordinarily large being. And then there's this being that's Galactus that has to eat whole planets because he's so big. And to him, people are like ants, right? The planet and its inhabitants are like nothing to Galactus, right? Because of his size and what he needs to keep on surviving. And so he was going to eat this planet that this character, Norrin Radd, was on. So Galactus goes to his planet, and the planet is, superior technologically, but it can't fend off Galactus, right? So Norrin Radd goes to Galactus and says, I'll work for you. You can, make me into something, transform me into something, and I'll work for you, and I'll find planets that are uninhabited that you can consume. And so he flies around the universe, and he does this. But he was in love with this woman named Shella Ball, who was his love interest, and he can never return to his home planet. That's one of the problems with the, with his deal with Galactus. And it haunts him because he's romantic and he really loved this woman. And he has a romantic side. And so him being, being a male character is essential to the story, to the storyline. Like you can't change him into a female character without destroying the character. Like the character can't be, we could just make him into a woman, right? Like they did with Captain Marvel. Like the whole storyline, and even more substantial, the Silver Surfer has a much bigger character than Captain Marvel. The Silver Surfer had years and years of comic books and a huge following, right? So much so that the movie Breathless with Richard Gere is Richard Gere sucks, and this movie is like one of his few good ones. My brother loved this movie, and he didn't know about the Silver Surfer beforehand. But the Silver Surfer is like a huge part of this movie. And Richard Gere is a car thief who has a romantic relationship with a French girl. And the romance in the Silver Surfer is a storyline in this movie, Breathless, right? And it's a big part of, the Silver Surfer's identity and his popularity, right? Also with that, the Silver Surfer was integral in the Infinity Gauntlet. See these comic books that all involve the Silver Surfer and Thanos and these Eternals. And it was, it's a more sophisticated storyline than you see in most comic books. It's more even a adult level, and it's mystical. And so his placement and not being a part of that Infinity Gauntlet and Thanos and all these things, like you can see him, he's here, he's everywhere. He's a central figure in this, in the storyline that we saw with the Infinity Gauntlet wars and things with Thanos and Avengers, and the Silver Surfer was important. But they failed so many times with the Fantastic Four that they couldn't bring the Silver Surfer into. They wanted the Fantastic Four to be a part of the Avengers, these narratives, but they've failed, I think, twice or three times to make movies that people liked about. There he is with Thanos, right? That people liked about these. The Infinity Gauntlet went on for years, and it went on multiple different comic books, and so this is Silver Surfer 50th anniversary, and so the Silver Surfer cannot be made into a woman, right? Long story short, he is. They had this Fantastic Four with Jessica Biel, and the guy who played Captain America was Johnny Storm, and this guy, and they failed. They didn't make good movies, and that one involved the Silver Surfer was a part of that movie, and in the comic book, the Silver Surfer, Galactus is starving and he needs to eat something, and he finds Earth, and Silver Surfer fights him off and doesn't allow him to consume Earth with the Fantastic Four and other superheroes. And he is cast down and he has to stay on Earth for a number of years. He can't leave Earth. There's Galactus says, if you love Earth so much, and he creates another Herald because he liked the idea of having that position filled. He liked the idea of the work that Silver Surfer was doing. But he is now, he's banished to Earth. And so again, there's a romantic aspect to the guy. And he's, it's essential to his being and what he represents as a character. And you can't make that into a woman. Anybody who's read these comics and knows anything about the Silver Surfer would be like, you can't make this character into a woman. It goes against everything, the primary building blocks and the essence of the character is that he's has a romantic relationship and he loves this woman that he'll never see again. And so this is Marvel just epically failing because nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. They keep on making these characters into women, and Silver Surfer is one of the more powerful characters in the MCU, in Marvel comic books. And they just keep on doing this, right? They keep on failing because nobody wants a feminist character in this role or any of these roles. It's not, you're losing, box office. Look at what happened with the Marvels. And you think they go, all right, that's not working. Let's drop that. There's already a good character, a female character in the Invisible Lady, girl, whatever it is, who was played by Jessica, whatever her name is, Jessica Alba, right? And so, they already have a character that's a part of this, Fantastic Four, but they need more. And so they're going to stick the Silver Surfer, put a vagina on the Silver Surfer, make her feminist. They'll just never learn. They did this with, I think, not the Foundation. We liked the Apple Foundation, and I don't know if that was, or the Silo. We liked the Apple show Silo. And I don't know, I didn't read the Silo books, but I know about them. But with the Foundation series, which was, there's people who just love that. they took two minor feminist women characters and made them the central characters in the show, because that's the way they're going with all these things. And if you think about any of the women, like if you took Wonder Woman and turned her into a man, right? If you made it Wonder Man, or if you took any historical woman figure, you took like Joan of Arc or Mother Teresa or Harriet Tubman or Sacagawea, and you made them into men, right? Think about the outrage. Think about, like just how the feminists would be about that. Well, Megan Rapinoe and made a Megan Rapinoe story and turned Megan into a man. I know what people are going to say. Any number of these characters or historical figures. You took Barbie and made Barbie into a man. Any of these things. And the outrage, because you just don't do that. You don't take somebody who's a sex, because that's a part of their identity. And even if it's a fictional character, you don't do that. And they're doing this, and the justification is that men have been abusing women forever, and men have, dominated all. And, it's content made for men. The audience of the MCU is 59% men, 60% men, and 40% women. And that's only because they've tried to cater to women, and men are stopped going to these movies, right? Men are turned off by these things and aren't watching these movies and TV shows because they're telling men in every possible way you suck, and we can take what you like and love and the things that you're into and ruin them, which is what this is all about. It's always been about this, right? It's ruining stuff for men. And again, I don't care if they wreck this stuff. I thought it was funny when they wrecked Star Wars. And that wasn't just, they wrecked Star Wars for different reasons. But, all these things that they're doing, there's no good movies anymore. My wife and I, my family watched, on Thanksgiving, we watched Dungeons and Dragons, which I'd already seen. And it's a wonderful movie. And there's no agenda, and it's, there's a powerful woman character there. A couple of them, right? There's a warrior and one that can shape change, but it's just a funny, light movie, no agenda. And it's the way movies should be. Movies shouldn't take themselves so seriously. The Marvel Universe should not take itself seriously. It's not about, if they want to make some references, they have some truther stuff in the Captain America movies, some of the stuff about government surveillance and some of these things, Hydra, but it should always be done in a light way. These movies are for escapism, right? It's to escape, whatever's going on in your life. And I want to get into this because I also today, I'm going to talk about Bill Gates and what he says about AI and free time. So remember this part because I want to reference this. I mean, whatever. You don't have to. There's not going to be a quiz. But then they do the opposite here with these other movies, these action movies that are coming out, where they give the opposite message. And that's how they mess with people, right? I was looking at the football games yesterday, and I didn't really watch the Cowboys Commanders game, the artist formerly known as the Redskins. And I was thinking about, when I was a kid, the Patriots sucked. That's where I lived. I lived, equidistance between New York and Boston. I was 2 hours from New York and 2 hours from Boston. So people in Connecticut were usually fans of either the New York teams or the Boston teams. And I was the fan of neither. I just didn't like those teams, and they're always on. We had 3 channels and 2 channels with football games on them. And, the Patriots would be on one channel, the Giants would be on the other, Jets. And that was it, right? The teams that I wanted to see were occasionally on, right? And the Cowboys were kind of always on because they were, America's team, so to speak. I was a fan of the Cowboys when I was a little kid because I took a plane trip. I think my first plane trip, and they used to give decks of cards away on planes. And I got a card, and they had cities on them. And the first deck of cards I got was Dallas. So I liked the Cowboys for a little bit. But I would tune into the game, the Redskins versus the Cowboys. You see that usually on Thanksgiving. But it was a rivalry game. And the Washington Redskins were a good team back then. And the Cowboys, have always had a good team because it's a big football place in Texas. And I was thinking about it today. They've made that rivalry all the way back then because the people of Texas have a certain reputation and the people in Washington, D.C. have a equally bad reputation. And it's quite a distance away, right? There's all these teams up and down the East Coast, Florida teams that, in other sports, there's the Atlantic Coast Conference in college, which the Washington team would be in. Teams against Maryland and teams in North Carolina and South Carolina and down the Florida coast, Georgia coast, things like this. So if you think about whatever conference, the Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens, who used to be the Cleveland Browns, and it's still, that's a little bit of a distance, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're all centrally located. The Baltimore Ravens used to be the Cleveland Browns. That's why they're in that conference, right? But for the most part, those teams are all very close together. The teams, Carolina Panthers and Atlanta Falcons, the Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints are very close together. And, football teams they've had expanded, right? So, but the original conference with it's called the NFC East. It's the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants, and they're about 2 hours away with, New York, Philadelphia traffic. They're very close together. Miles-wise, they're even closer. They're these coastal cities. And then there's the Commanders that are not that far. D.C. isn't that far from New York and Washington. And then all of a sudden you go all the way out to Dallas from there, right? How is Dallas in the NFC East, right? I mean, it's like a joke, these other conferences here, where the other ones. Oh, the Minnesota Vikings, the Detroit Lions, the Packers, and the Bears, all in, the central part of America. And they're relatively close. They're cities that know each other. People maybe have moved back and forth or have relatives in those other cities, right? And then you have to take a 5-6 hour plane ride from the East Coast. And these are coastal cities, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, and go all the way over to Texas, right? And, they've always had this rivalry between, especially, when I grew up, and it was the rivalry between the Cowboys and the Indians. And the Indians were represented by liberals, the liberal city of Washington, D.C. But majority of football fans in that area are from Maryland and Virginia, and they're more southern, a little bit more rednecky, a little bit more right wing or whatever. But the Washington D.C. is the capital, is liberal capital of America, and politics and the liberal politics and the liberal media and all these things. And you have Dallas, Texas, and all these traditional evangelical type people, and so they started that rivalry years and years ago. Cowboys and Indians, these old films that were John Wayne at that time, right? I mean, so many years ago. Like, I grew up with it when I was a little kid. It's like 60 years or so that rivalry was there. And it's kind of effed up that they do that on Thanksgiving, right? Now they've had to, change the name to the Commanders. But they would have this, the Indians and the Cowboys would be fighting on Thanksgiving every year. And it shows you how much of a psychological operation and, the way that they were dividing people way back when. And those divisions are so now entrenched in people, the liberals versus the conservatives. And so let's get to the, how they do that with these other movies that are just the opposite of what I was talking about with the Marvel movies and the feminists. So I watched this trailer, Ruthless. Well, the other day I watched a trailer. A bunch of trailers came up. I just started watching them. And I used to do that a lot. If I didn't see the movie, I would see the trailer. Sometimes I would feature the trailers in a video. And, sometimes I enjoy watching a trailer more than a movie because it's just less time and energy and, and you get the full experience. But I watched this movie where two guys, a brother and a husband of a woman who was arred and killed by a criminal who ended up serving only 10 years in jail, take the guy out into the woods and are torturing him. It's an Australian movie. And maybe because I watched that, they recommended this. It's called Ruthless.
Harry's daughter was murdered 4 years ago.
So this guy's daughter was murdered 4 years ago, and he becomes a coach.
Will, now come in.
He finds a girl who's being abused by her dad. So he
I dare.
So he breaks his arm. The dad ends up selling her to human traffickers, and he goes and he, starts beating them up.
You can't do this, man.
He's not a cop. He's a rogue guy in his own. This guy thinks he's got it. That's not a knife. That's a knife. Boom. And so, he's rogue here. He's gone rogue.
I'm gonna kill them.
And so it recommended a bunch of other trailers to me, and then it recommended more. And I pulled up 5 more movies, and each one of them had the theme. It was a woman, usually a young woman, who was being human trafficked in some way or abused, and vigilantes coming in and taking care of them, right? Now, I know that there was the success of that horrible movie that was, so celebrated in the truth community. The Sound of Freedom, and I don't know if it's about that. They talk about how, they're all upset at right-wing people. This is some guy who's a professor, stars Morgan Freeman.
To all cultures.
Terry?
I like your eyes.
So this guy kidnaps this girl. He's killing people.
Here I become the power. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, this guy's going after him.
He's doing the same thing here.
Yeah, he is.
Who are you? We have 2 officers down.
They're going to go get him. So there's a theme of these movies. This is called the Ritual Killer. But they talk about right-wing people, and, they are against people going vigilante, right? This is a whole news theme, and it makes you basically a terrorist. But they've always pushed this stuff out there since the Dirty Harry movies of some cop who goes rogue and doesn't use the, rights of the justice system. I mean, it's something that the Cubies all fell for and wanted to give up their judicial rights and their rights to due process. So people that they were told were evil by a psychological operation that was being run by the intelligence community would be rendered and sent to Guantanamo Bay and having these secret military tribunals. They want you to get rid of these rights. They want to make you upset and think that you have to go out and be a vigilante. And they're pushing this idea.
Just finding out who people really were back then.
So this is a young girl who's it's called Black Snow. And it's another one in Australia. This girl it's a cold case of a girl who was, somehow abused or human trafficked. God is a Bullet. Inspired by true events. Boom, she was kidnapped.
I lost my wife. I lost my daughter.
Forget about the authorities tracking your daughter down. If you want her back, you got to get her yourself.
Boom, exactly. Go rogue. You got to go rogue.
There is a message.
So yeah, he's going rogue. Go rogue, young man. Go rogue. So this is called The Locksmith. It starts off with the guy going to jail for breaking and entering. This guy here.
Welcome to the world.
And he gets out and all these things.
I'm in trouble, Miller.
April?
The man I work for. He won't let me go, and he's...
So then he somehow he's just a thief, but now he's this girl April is being human trafficked by her boss.
still hurting me. After Kevin died, there was no one there to stop it.
I wish I never brought him there that night.
I need...
So now he's got to do that, right? So the theme is there, right? All this feminist movies with the Marvels and the way women are now standing up for themselves, and then there's these other theme movies where women are being human trafficked and abused, and they need these men to go rogue. Like they're pushing these agendas. They're oppositional agendas. Women who no longer need men to rescue them, who fight for themselves, but somehow want men to watch them beat up men, because the feminists don't really want to watch the movies. And then you have these things that are tailored to the Sound of Freedom audience, that some man has got to go in there and go rogue and rescue women from human trafficking and other things. A few more things to get to. I ran into at the Dollar. Look who I ran into at the Dollar General. Damar Hamlin. He's at the Dollar General with his, recent cardiac arrest and getting some quality food and things to help him with his his healthcare situation. He's got all the emojis. And then I saw this on Facebook. It's a ad here. Go back to it. When drafting our newest pro football star, advocate Damar Hamlin, we recently teamed up with Damar at Mari Ferrari Children's Hospital, a member of the WMCU Health, to introduce Heartmates, a new program designed to support people navigating their heart health journeys. Now, they've normalized this for kids, right? And young people and athletes. And, we know that there's something else going on here. Something had to change, right? If all of a sudden you have young people, healthy young people, many of them athletes, all of them in good shape, just dropping dead of cardiac arrest, something's changed. Something's been introduced, so something that didn't happen before is now happening. Whatever it is, COVID-related, or if it's the bloop, or if it's 5G, or all these things, something's changed. Something new is in the environment, in the atmosphere that's caused, there's cause and effect. We know what the effect is. What's the cause?
Football has been one of my passions since I was a kid. I started playing at 5 years old. It's had the biggest impact on who I am because you learn so much having a team. It's going to be rough days, hard days, fun days. That's what makes a good team. A heart. Everybody being together.
It's a heart. They're drawing hearts.
Together for a common goal. What's up, man?
Abbott's launching its Heartmate program in partnership with Damar Hamlin. And this community allows them to connect with other people.
Gotta get back in the lab.
To share their experiences and understand that you can live with heart disease.
Exactly, especially if you're a kid.
Not feeling like it's something that you have to deal with on your own. This is me passing my blessings on. Do everything to protect it. Yeah.
With Abbott, we believe that living longer is important, but so is living better.
Heartmates, exactly. Because that's what happens with, kids nowadays dropping dead from heart-related issues. So this is going to be infuriating for a lot of people, especially right-wing people.
I want to holler, I want to scream, I want to yell, but it won't do any good. Today is gear turn-in day for me. I turn in all the gear that I've collected over the last 4 years of being active duty with the Army, with the 82nd Airborne Division. 2 years ago, my unit deployed to Afghanistan for the Afghanistan withdrawal. We spent a few weeks over there. It was hectic, it was chaotic, it was disgusting, and it made me very disappointed in our government. Today, I'm reminded of how disappointed I am in our government. Go to turn in my gear. They want to charge me $500 to $1,000 for gear that I was ordered to leave in Afghanistan 2 years ago. Because as the last two birds were sitting on the tarmac, ready to leave, there wasn't any room for extra gear or extra weight. Therefore, we were told to leave it. Some lower enlisted dudes, including myself, were like, no, this stuff is expensive. I'm not leaving this. I'm going to get charged for this when it comes time to leave. Don't worry. We're going to catch you on the back end. We'll flipple it. No. It's time to get out of the Army, and they want to charge you for that. Meanwhile, we can continue to give millions of dollars to the Taliban. We can give billions of dollars to Ukraine. We can give billions of dollars to student debt relief. We can give a bunch of stupid stimulus checks. We can cut those to the American people. But we can't cover $500 to $1,000 for a dude that left gear in Afghanistan. For a dude that left gear in a place that you put me to begin with. The government is so stinking backwards right now, man. This administration's last priority is the American people.
Okay, so we get the gist. It's not just this administration. I don't know if Trump would be any different. Of course, Trump, didn't do the withdrawal himself, right, when he should have. Trump was good on war. He was better on war, and he was better on these false flaggy type of things and whatever. But he didn't get out of Afghanistan. But this is, atrocious, right? This is how they should have taped the guy like you have a phone, right? If somebody's telling you And just in terms of, like, I'm not saying he should have, but in retrospect, when you're dealing with something like this, if you're a soldier and you have a commanding officer, of course, maybe they're not psyched about you doing it, but if somebody's saying we're going to get you on the back end, you should, record it, and you'd have evidence and whatever. I don't know. Maybe they prosecute you for that. Who knows? The Army, you're basically like a prisoner when you're in the Army. You're giving up lots of your rights. And everyone says they thank you for their service, and maybe somebody bumps you up to first class when you go to fly somewhere. But for the most part, corporations don't want to hire you because they don't want to hire people who've been trained to kill. They're scared of people who have military training. And so they say that, thank you for your service, but they're not really into it, right? It's just, superficial. And when you're in the Army and you're in the military, you lose a lot of your rights and privileges and things, right? Remember, they were forcing the bloop on them. Remember how that all went. And so, it's, for this guy and the people who are suffering this, it's, of course, it's infuriating. The tragedy to the Golden Gate Bridge, $400 million anti-suicide net. So the Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco is tanking. And there's all these people that are, leaping off of it. And so they planned a $140 million project that turned into a $400 million project to keep people from leaping off from being caught, in a net as they leaped off the bridge. But what's stopping them from jumping out of the net? Is it like filled with spider jelly or something that you get stuck in the net? Like, like stick them? Because you can still jump out of the net. So here we have an AI robot that's doing a little dance here. They're getting better. Like, I don't know if that's a real robot, but they are, they're getting better. Amber Rose lets her 4-year-old son Slash drink coffee every morning. Mother of the Year. I think I've talked about her being the Mother of the Year for something else. Like me and my kids sit and we drink coffee and we talk. You recognize that, that your kids aren't your pals. Okay, I got a few more things I want to tell you here. A few more things I want to get to. Two of them are kind of the same. First, this guy's from the WEF talking about future travel.
There's going to be people of means who are going to travel, and then there's going to be people maybe who of lesser means who might actually be able to use an Oculus or a Magic Leap or some other kind of device to travel to the same place, but from their own couch. But in many ways, it's actually going to create even more distance between those two people. That psychologically.
You think so? That doing something VR and then other people get to do things in real life and that's going to create distance? Like doing something in VR, you're not even the same reality, right? VR is, you're in the cyber world. When you enter into your computer, I'm using my computer right now. I'm using my microphone, but I'm in a room and I'm conscious. And, my surroundings are around me. There are noises going on. My dogs will bark or something. My wife will walk in or whatever might happen. And, I'm having a physical experience while using the internet. But when you're in VR, you're just gone. And, there's a point where you're just in it, right? You're looking at your phone and people are talking to you and you're just gone. You're so focused on something that you're in the internet. You're no longer in your physical body. It's like you've left your body and you're now totally invested in the internet. Video games, that happens where you just lose sense of reality around you. Things are happening. You're not aware of the things around you. And VR is the ultimate in that, where you're literally, your eyes are looking at something. Your whole surroundings are the, virtual reality. But anyways, it's just stupid. Then there was this. I saw an article about it, and here's the Trevor Noah, What Now? He's got his own podcast because, he sucked at The Daily Show, and he continues to suck here.
Around them. So now we see this with AI, where, again, fantastic positive potential, But
not really, though. I mean, yeah, there's going to be more cool stuff that you can do on the internet and more ways that you don't have to do stuff now AI can do for you. And you can become weaker and less self-reliant. But in reality, it's just a bad thing. It's something that if it's there, you use it because it's there. And we live in a world where you have these things and you use them because they're tools. But they're not good things, right? We already see what computer and iPhones and things have done to people. People are less than. And we have better technology, but we've become weaker and dumber and all the bad things. And so it isn't that the technology in itself is bad, but humans' ability to turn something into an addiction and use it as a crutch and a distraction from living their life and doing what their soul's path is epic. So all this stuff is bad.
Think about the ramifications of this technology that could take jobs away. And if that gap is long enough or big enough, what happens in that? We've seen when young men don't have jobs, they become radicalized, they become violent, they join extreme groups anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter what it is.
Well, if you zoom out, the purpose of life is not just to do jobs. So if you eventually get a society where you only have to work 3 days a week or something, that's probably okay. If the machines can make all the food and the stuff and we don't have to work as hard. There are displacements, and if they come slow enough, they're generational. So, you could have had a grandfather who thought the only real job was being on a farm, and then a father who did some farm work and some other work. And now this generation, only 2% of Americans are involved in farming in any way. And that's okay, even though grandpa would think, oh, that's awful. You're not getting your hands dirty.
So I want to come back to that. Like, remember the stuff you said about farming. It's one of my central things here, right? But it's not okay. Not farming is not okay. Or not farming, yeah, it's not okay.
So if it proceeds at a reasonable pace and the government helps those people who have to learn new things, then it's all good. It's, the aging society, it's okay because the software makes things more productive. But eventually, if you free up human labor, you can help elder people better, have small class sizes. The demand for labor to do good things is still there if you match the skills to it. And then if you ever get beyond that, okay, you have a lot of leisure time and we'll have to figure out what to do with it.
Bill Gates has bought a ton of farmland recently. And they address in this interview, because I had to go through it to find this. It was all, it was up on YouTube, the whole thing. It was like 45 minutes long. And I had to go through it. And they were addressing Bill Gates being demonized by truthers and other people. And Bill Gates, how ridiculous that was, he was saying, and all these things, right? The demonization of Gates. But the guy was a horrible person as the CEO of Microsoft. I mean, he did all kinds of shady stuff. Like, he's not trustworthy. I say this all the time. People complain about when things are made up about them that aren't true. But when you become so untrustworthy and everything that you're doing is suspect, then people are going to make up things because you're not telling the truth. When you're a liar, then people have to fill in what the truth actually is. And if they use their imaginations or they get off track or they, whatever it is, they get paranoid, and, which happens when you lie to people, when you gaslight them. But aside from that, because that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about what he's saying about AI. And I've said this so many times. There was a time years ago where the powers that be convinced people to get off their farm, to get out of their tribe, to get out of their village, to break up the family and go live in cities. And instead of doing multitasking and working as a farmer and knowing how to do a lot of things and spending a majority of your time just surviving, you can now work 8 hours a day at a specialized skill with a specialized set of skills, and that would be it. Everything else would be taken care of. And you would be given free time. And the free time is a good thing, but it's not. It's potentially a good thing, but the way people have used it is bad. And now we've lost all those skills, and we see that there is a fall off. Because when I first started homesteading, Because I've been taught my whole year, I mean my whole life, my whole year, I've been taught my whole life, or when I was younger, we all have, that farming, like he said, getting your hands dirty. And farming and being a farmer is so much more than that. Farmers are much higher functioning than the normal person. Like I had to, you have to up your game as a person, as a human being, to learn all the things. You have to expand your consciousness to do farming. And you have to connect with nature, and there's so many ways. You have to be an inventor. You have to do all these things. You have to learn how to fix things, and you're like an animal psychologist, and also like you have to tend to your animals or whatever, your livestock and things like this. There's so many things that I can't even express them, that you expand as a person. You become a much more whole, fully functioning, natural person, because there's a farmer in every one of us. And I'm not, saying I love it. I do love it in some ways, but I wasn't born to it, so it's not natural for me. And it is, some things are. And you have these like file found moments, things inside you, genetic and, past life things that are there, because we all have been farmers in the past, because that's what you had to be. You had to be some sort of natural person. You had to be a hunter or gatherer. You had to be a farmer. You had to engage with primary labor. And now with fast food and restaurants and processed foods, people don't even cook their own food, never mind grow their own food. But that doesn't make people better. What it does do is it frees them up to have free time. And the way that people spend their free time is atrocious. I mean, it's egregious. It's so bad. And, like you look at the internet, 1/3 of it's porn. So that's something. Things that are of a sexual addiction nature. And then think about all the shows that are on there. The stuff with Kim Kardashian and, any number of these different dumb housewives shows, and then all the, just stupid content that's out there, and all the stupid content that's on the internet. And then people getting into arguments on the internet and spending their time trolling and, just a whole host of negative behaviors, overeating and, getting obese, getting out of shape. How many people spend their free time appropriately? Again, it's usually about pleasure, and then the people don't even enjoy their pleasure, right? So, it's not time well spent. And so if AI comes in, and they can't do this for everybody, they don't need everybody, and so they can reduce the population, reduce the footprint of people, which Bill Gates has been talking about for years, and they only need, some number of people to continue on, and whatever workers have to be there to fix the robots, or, if they get robots to fix robots, then what will people be there for? And you need tasks, you need goals, you need jobs, not a wage slave job, but you need work. You have to have work. And when you lose your purpose, I just talked about with that blue zones, people retire and they just fall apart. Physically, they lose all sense of purpose. You need a purpose, you need a goal, and farming is a big part of that. And a part of that blue zone thing, which is, again, it was a an agenda-based thing in itself, but part of it was about having, goals and a purpose and contributing, and one other part was about growing your own food to some extent, and gardening, which is very, it's healthy doing the gardening, and you're eating healthier foods. And so Bill Gates saying this, people having more free time isn't going to be used for the better, because people have shown they haven't used free time to connect to God and to do things that are of a higher nature. They do things that are, people have the idea that, I have free time. They utilize that free time to do something that is pleasure-based, and usually it has negative consequences on themselves and society. And so people saying, we'll figure that out. We've already figured it out. We already know that people don't use free time for the more free time that people have, the worse things get, right? Idle hands make whatever it is, right? What do idle hands do? Idle hands are the devil's workshop. And, these sayings are based in something. They're not based in that's not true at all, right? A lot of these things are completely true. And we know that people who have too much free time, you see with the ultra wealthy people that don't worry about money at all, and, they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, they don't do good things, right? It's already proven. We have the data on that, right? We have the data on that, Bill. But anyways, they got to wrap this thing up. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Barabato. Definitely pointing from the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.